Speaker, sir. B641.
Mr. Speaker, sir, since there are 3 questions on Hajj Pilgrimage 2022 which have been addressed to me, with your permission, I will reply to all the questions together. Mr. Speaker, sir, at the very outset, allow me to state that this year's Hajj pilgrimage is being organized as per very particular conditions imposed by the Saudi authorities, and that there is no comparison whatsoever which can be made between this year's Hajj pilgrimage with pilgrimage of previous years. And one of the most significant change this year is that only 1 million pilgrims will be authorized to perform Hajj, as opposed to 5 million pilgrims which were granted visa. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, with regards to the Hajj pilgrimage 2022, I'm informed by the ICC that following various correspondences from the Saudi authorities for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, and the pre-Hajj mission of the chairperson of the ICC in Saudi Arabia from the 19th to the 25th April 2022, the following information have been obtained. For this year's pilgrimage, the Mutawafun Foundation has been designated by the Saudi authorities as per the body responsible for the organization of the Hajj. Mauritius has been allocated 679 visas by the foundation. However, government has initiated negotiations with the Saudi authorities to increase the number of visas to 1,000. The negotiations are still ongoing and a reply is awaited. Compared to previous years, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, only those aged above 18 years old and under 65 years will be eligible to participate in the pilgrimage, provided, of course, that they are fully vaccinated as per the approved list of vaccines of the Saudi Ministry of Health. And pilgrims will have to submit a negative PCR test performed 72 hours before arrival in Saudi Arabia, as well as an insurance policy covering full treatment costs in case of infection with COVID-19 and valid for the whole duration of the pilgrimage. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the number of persons who have applied to perform Hajj this year, I'm informed that registration for Hajj pilgrimage is an ongoing exercise. As at date, there are around 29,700 registered pilgrims on the Hajj registration list. In view of the reduced number of visas and the new conditions imposed regarding age and vaccination, the ICC has already started an exercise with those eligible on the list to confirm their interest. According to latest information, 679 persons on the registered list have confirmed their participation in the pilgrimage, with an additional 60 on a waiting list. In case of withdrawal of a person prior to the pilgrimage, replacement will be made from the waiting list. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm further informed that arrangements will be made, as in previous years, for the transportation of pilgrims. To that effect, the ICC has launched on the 21st of April 2022 a tender exercise for the transportation of pilgrims, and the deadline for the submission of the bids is le 20 May 2022. As regards accommodation of the pilgrims, I'm informed that a meeting was held on the 5th May 2022 between the ICC and the Hajj operators, whereby the latter were informed that the same hotels for which deposits were made in 2020 can be used for the 2022 pilgrimage. To that effect, 8 Hajj operators have traveled to Saudi Arabia to finalize the list of hotels for the approval of the Mutawafun Foundation. Once approval is obtained, the list of the hotels and the costs thereof to accommodate the pilgrims will be communicated. Mr. Speaker, sir, let us be clear, and this is well known by members. The cost of the Hajj pilgrimage is not determined by the government, but depends mostly on the Saudi authorities and is beyond our control. At this stage, it is difficult to estimate the cost of the Hajj pilgrimage 2022. Honorable Usman Mohammed has requested for a comparison with the 2021 Hajj pilgrimage, but due to COVID-19 pandemic, only citizens and residents of Saudi Arabia were allowed to perform Hajj in 2021. Thus, 2021 is not a year of reference, rather we can refer to 2019. And compared to Hajj pilgrimage 2019, there are indications based on current market figures that the cost would definitely be higher due to several factors beyond our control. These are, inter alia, the increase in value-added tax in Saudi Arabia from 5% to 15% since July 2020. The increase in transportation tax from 1,571 Saudi riyal in 2019 to 1,750 Saudi riyal in 2022. Increase in Qurbani fees from 400 Saudi riyal in 2019 to 1,000 Saudi riyal in 2022, more than 100% increase. Introduction, as from this year, of a mandatory Makkah catering service of around 60 riyal per day per Haji. Increase in the cost of special services for the 5-day Hajj in Mina, Arafat, and Muzdalifah to around 7,000 riyal instead of 2,232 riyal in 2019, more than 300% increase. General increase in cost of airfares and accommodation. And finally, introduction of a Hajj visa fees of amounting to 410 riyal by Saudi authorities. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, as at now, all these costs are subject to confirmation by the Saudi authorities. I personally chaired a meeting yesterday with the chairperson and board members of the ICC to discuss on the pilgrimage and the possible cost implications. A Hajj committee has been set up, which will be co-chaired by myself and my colleague, the Vice Prime Minister, Dr. Hosnu, with the participation of the Senior Advisor to the Prime Minister's Office, Dr. Jumai. The committee will meet this Friday to take stock of the airfares and accommodation and to discuss on other cost implications. Ambassador Sudan will also intervene via video conference during the meetings of the Hajj Committee, and he will ensure coordination with the Saudi authorities and the Mutawafun Foundation. I wish to inform the House that I had a phone conversation with Ambassador Sudan yesterday, who assured me that necessary follow-up were being made with the Saudi authorities. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, I wish to reassure the House that given the importance that Hajj represents to the Muslim community, as it is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, the government, more particularly the Prime Minister, is not sparing any effort to ensure a better package for our pilgrims. Negotiations will be maintained with the Saudi authorities, et tout cela in the best interest of all the pilgrims, and to ensure that all our pilgrims complete their sacred duty in the best possible conditions.
Thank you, Speaker, sir. I would invite the Honourable Minister to read my question again. Nowhere in the question was mentioned 2019. My question pertains to the last edition, where Mauritian attended, which is 2019, the year of reference that he has mentioned in his question. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether he has taken cognizance of several religious leaders, one of them being Maulana Kodadin, in an article dated 13th of May, titled « L'ICC a failli dans l'organisation du Hajj 2022 », wherein it is mentioned that une personne doit débourser 300 000 roupies au minimum pour accomplir le Hajj cette année. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, being given, according to information that I have, and I do reconcile with the fact that costs have increased, no doubt about that, and across the world, An increase of 40% is being...
Put your question. Yeah. You've been too long now. Put your question.
An increase of 40% is being felt all over the place.
I told you to put
Can
your
I ask the Honourable Minister? Yeah, I'm going. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether the 40% increment, if we apply it to 2019 version, which is 150,000 rupees, that the package be finalized to around 200 and 210,000 rupees instead of 300,000 rupees to facilitate people going for this pillar of Islam?
I've just mentioned, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the cost of the Hajj pilgrimage is not determined by the government. So we can speculate for hours and days and weeks. I've just given in my reply all the factors that when you add up determines the cost. There has been increase in airfares, there has been increase in the value-added tax. I've set out all the increases that today will definitely impact on the cost. But we cannot speculate. We cannot just come up with figures and say 300,000. This is not responsible. We are working today. There is a bid which is going to be open on Friday in relation to transportation, airfare. There are operators presently, and some of them are already back from Saudi Arabia. We will get the cost of accommodation from them. So let's wait until we have plus de visibilité sur les coûts, and in a certain manner, we can come up with a package where we have certainty in terms of cost rather than just speculating or coming up with figures which can create misinformation in the community.
The Honourable Minister just mentioned that we're going to have only 679 visas. Will the Honourable Minister take the matter up with the Chairman and representative of the ICC to see to it if priority this year can be given to those pilgrims who are between 60 and 65, because people with above 65 cannot perform Hajj for the time being. So people who are 64, 63, perhaps this year is their last opportunity to do the Hajj. So if priority could be given to these pilgrims and those who have never performed Hajj before.
Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a process established in terms of how they determine, how they work out the registration list and who to contact or not for each Hajj pilgrimage for each year. But I take good note of the proposal of Honorable Utim, and I will convey the request if same can be entertained by ICC.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, you mentioned clearly in your answer it is difficult to give an estimate now. Are you aware, Honourable Minister, that officers from the ICC called future Hajis asking them if they are agreeable to go ahead as a minimum tariff will be 300,000 rupees? And can you inform the House who gave them instruction to call the Haji and give them the tariff of 300,000 rupees? And can we know how many of them declined because of the tariff of 300,000 out of the 679 you mentioned who confirmed? How many of them, how many you contacted and how many declined because of the tariff?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we are 50 days from Hajj. And once we get an indication on the number of visas that has been allocated to the country, there is the initiation of a process of contacting all pilgrims who are on the registration list to seek their interest whether they want to perform Hajj or not this year. And as soon as we got the figure, this exercise was initiated by the ICC as for any previous edition. Now, in terms of whether officers stated that 300,000 or more, I fail to understand again, Mr. Speaker, sir. In my reply, I did mention that we don't have a clear indication of the package. And these information have been provided by the ICC. There was a HUD mission that went to Saudi Arabia to collect information, to garner all information for us to be able to prepare the Hajj exercise this year. So I don't agree with the Honourable Member that there is a figure that has been put to pilgrims or people who are on the registration list, or even the famous 300,000 that everyone, not everyone, but I've heard members talking about. I'm very sorry, but we are conducting the registration and seeking interest from registered person as it has been done previous years. The same process is being followed.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the new conditions for the performance of Hajj ritual this year by the Saudi authorities is to have a COVID-19 insurance, which add to the cost. Can the Honourable Minister, in an attempt to mitigate the price, ask the government whether SICOM insurance in Mauritius will offer a preferential package to all Hajjis in an attempt to bring down the cost? And secondly, will he also check with the State Bank of Mauritius to give a preferential rate of buying reals so that the costs can be mitigated in a context where prices have gone up? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I can reassure Honourable Member that the government, and I said particularly the Prime Minister, we are doing everything in our capacity, not only to ensure that we maintain our negotiation forcefully with the authorities to get a better deal in terms of the package, in terms of cost, but also if there are certain measures to be taken here, we have to, of course, in the Hajj Committee, discuss and see the possibilities and the leeway that we have. But be reassured, Honourable Member, that we are doing our utmost best to ensure, as I said, to get the best package in the best interest of all the pilgrims.
Last supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, the Honourable Minister stated that the cost is not determined by government, which is true, and I agree to that. But can I appeal to the Honourable Minister that government make a request to the Saudi authorities to reduce certain fixed fees, bien sûr dans la limite du possible?
I did state in my reply, Honourable Member, that Ambassador Sudan is in constant contact with the Saudi authorities, with the Mutawafun Foundation, to see if potentially there can be reduction in certain fixed costs that are being imposed this year. But unfortunately, we won't be able to commit in any way because, as I said, these are negotiations, and we have a new institution, the Mutawafun Foundation, which is a private institution that is involved in organization of Hajj this year. So we are doing, as I said, our utmost best to get the best package.
Table has been advised that